I'm Lisa Evers, and this is Street Soldiers.
Fox 5 and Hot 97 present Street Soldiers with Lisa Evers.
African-American athletes have made a huge impact on society in so many ways, and the tragic loss of Kobe Bryant is a reminder of their special role in our lives. A mural in Brooklyn at Pacific and Flatbush Avenue pays tribute to Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna, both killed along with 7 other people in a helicopter crash on January 26th. They were on their way to a tournament at his Mamba Academy. Smush Parker was Kobe's teammate for 2 years and says the experience expanded his view of life's possibilities.
My mindset was to make it to the NBA. That was my mindset, which I was fortunate to do. His mindset was he wanted to be the best basketball player in the world. He wanted to be the best basketball player that ever touched a basketball.
Kobe's example of success was a powerful one, especially for inner-city boys. New York Giants Super Bowl champion Jay Alford says African-American sports stars like Kobe Bryant are real-life superheroes to kids.
They need a space of where they can look up to, something or someone, so why not it be, the black athlete.
Kobe's dedication to his daughter Gianna and her basketball training was well known and well documented. Sports journalist Prim Siripipat recalls her interview with Kobe at last year's U.S. Open, never imagining he would be gone in less than 6 months.
Really, the coolest part of sitting down with him is you could see the warmth and the compassion and the softness in his eyes, and all of that drive and obsession that he had poured into basketball had now been dispersed into so many creative outlets, and a majority of it was poured into his family.
Since leaving the NBA, Smush Parker has created the Smush Inspires nonprofit organization to take kids off the streets and into sports. He says it's just one of many examples of Kobe's legacy living on.
One of my takeaways is I thought too small, and moving forward in my life, in my journey, I'm not going to think as small. If I think I want to do something, I'm going to think even bigger because I had a chance to play with Kobe Bryant.
There are many lessons to be learned from Kobe's life and legacy. Let's find out what our panel has to say. Joining me is Smush Parker. He's a former NBA player. He played on the Lakers with Kobe Bryant, and he's currently in training to be an NBA official. Smush, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Also joining us is Prim Siripipat. She's a former ESPN anchor who interviewed Kobe Bryant. She's the host of The Next Chapter with Prim Siripipat on The Athletic, and she's also a former pro tennis player. Prim, great to have you with us again.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Also joining us is Jay Alford. He's a New York Giants Super Bowl champion from 2008. A former NFL player. He's currently a graphic designer for Topps, and he's from Orange, New Jersey. Jay, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Prim, I want to start with you on this. The death of Kobe Bryant came as such a shock to people. It just was one of those moments where you remember where you were or what you were doing when you heard it. Why do you think it impacted everyone so deeply?
Yeah, I've thought about that for a really long time, especially for many of us. We really didn't have a personal relationship with Kobe, but it was definitely one of those moments where you will always remember for the rest of your life where you were when you heard the news. I think there's a combination of factors. I think for the most part, we really saw him grow up in front of our eyes. We've known him since he was maybe 16, 17 years old. And because he was such a public figure, and also he became such a star and an icon, he was one of those sports figures that was bigger than the game of basketball and bigger than sport. He was just kind of ubiquitous, if you will. You didn't have to be a sports fan to know who he was. And I think just he found a way to stay relevant, even at 41 years old. And so I just think it affected a lot of people, including myself.
Very, very, very deeply. Smush, you played with him, and our condolences, because I know it was a tough, especially tough for you having played with him and worked with him and known him so well when you were with the Lakers. And what can you tell us about him? Why do you think people that didn't know him like you do, felt this so painfully?
Well, it was surprising to me how it affected the world the way it did. But we were brothers. And it shook me to the core. But people could relate to Kobe because of his desire, his determination to win, his focus, everybody wants to get whatever level that they're at, work-wise, career-wise. They want to get to a level where they can just achieve greatness, and Kobe was able to do that. he channeled his inner, and there's something inside of Kobe that just drove him to want to be the best, and that's what people related with Kobe with.
Just that incredible drive.
Yes.
What was he like as a teammate to you? Because you were like you were like the young new guy.
Well, like I said, we were brothers. You know, we started in the backcourt for 2 seasons, 82 games plus playoffs. And for me, in my relationship with Kobe, he was more of a doer. You know, he was more of a person who led by example. You know, he came in with a laser-like focus. He was very professional. He took his craft and his work seriously. And for me, being the observer that I was, you know, I just kind of watched him, you know, watch how he, you know, went about, you know, the game of basketball and how the work that he put in. And I learned a lot just by watching.
Jay, you know what it takes to win a championship.
Absolutely.
You played in the with the New York Giants and some other NFL teams.
Right.
Had that famous sack in the Super Bowl game where you sacked Tom Brady there towards the end of the game. Yeah. When you saw Kobe and you saw his 5 championships, he played for 18 years. Yeah. When you see that level of accomplishment, what does that tell you about him as a player?
Kobe to me was just more. He was the epitome of work, like what work ethic looks like. So to see, you know, that level of expertise and him being able to do that consistently, I mean, you couldn't ask for anything better than that.
It's just the drive. Did you relate to the drive? Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. You know, like I grew up watching Kobe, so I mean, like she said, 18 years that he's been playing. And I grew up watching that, so some of my work ethic that I took, watched him do, I took from it, and yeah, the drive, absolutely.
And apply to you in your football career.
Absolutely.
Prim, you interviewed him within the last year. He was already kind of you know, he spent 18 seasons with the Lakers. Now was a dad. Now was really involved with his daughter Gianna, and may they and everybody on that helicopter crash rest in peace. What did you notice about him? Because you've interviewed a lot of athletes.
Yeah, I think it's funny that, you know, my 17 years in broadcasting, and the one time that I finally get to meet Kobe and interview him, it happened to be once he's done with basketball, which really coincides with what I'm really passionate about. And I think the one thing, like, we all know about Kobe, the champion, and what he was like when he was playing, that win at all costs mentality that sometimes, you know, in some ways affected his friendships and relationships. But I think the one thing that really stood out to me was really just how much he softened. And I think a lot of that had to do with age, the fact that he's had some time to separate himself from basketball, the fact that he's become not a father, but also a father of not 1, 2, but 4 daughters. And that, you know, becoming a parent changes your life. But as a man, having 4 daughters, that is game changing. And that was probably the most beautiful aspect I saw with Kobe is, you know, the rage and the anger and the dedication that he poured into basketball has now been dispersed to so many different areas, including the stuff that he was doing with his children's book series, his podcast, his movie and storytelling and filmmaking, and also his family too.
And all those things. Smush, help us understand, but when you're playing, when you're in the middle of an NBA season, that's a lot of games and a lot of physical wear and tear, even if you're in top shape.
Definitely.
What's it like?
It's rigorous. You know, it's an 82-game season. It's 7 months straight, no weekends, no holidays. We can have 4 games a week where we're traveling right after a game. You know, we play Monday against the Minnesota Timberwolves, let's just say, and right after the game, we're on a plane to the next city. We're flying to Detroit. We get into a city at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning to play a back-to-back. And you have 4 games a week, so you're playing 2 back-to-backs that week. You know, so and that's 7 months, 8 months out of the year straight of that, and it takes a toll on your body.
So you have to be super focused.
Super focused.
And what will you remember about Kobe? I mean, a lot of things, but the most positive thing.
The most positive thing is, again, I'm an athlete and I'm a competitor, and there's no bigger competitor, no greater athlete than Kobe Bryant.
We'll be right back.
He wanted to be the best in the world. He wanted to go down as the best ever to touch this earth.
When you look around what's happening today, so many players like yourself, former players as well, have their own charitable foundations. We see Derek Jeter with the Turn 2 Foundation doing so much programs, tremendous programs around the country, and you're involved with one too. Tell us about that.
Well, a little bit about mine. It's called, my nonprofit is called Smush Inspires, and it's geared towards the inner city kids who are overlooked, who might not have the resources to make it to an NBA professional game or to pay for a high-profile athletes basketball camp. So I go into these inner cities and I host free camps, free clinics, and more importantly, when I go back into these communities, it's not about the basketball. It's not about the skills training that I teach. It's more about inspiring and having these kids believe in themselves, believing in dreams that they honestly don't see every day on a daily basis, you know, because of their present circumstances. And it's triple-fold. A lot of the kids that I mentor and inspire, they grow up without fathers in the home, or, you know, positive male role models. So I want to be that light. I want to be that person that comes back and, you know, be a positive role model and let them know that if you believe in yourself, that you can make it out just like I did.
That's really powerful, and that's great that you're doing that. It's really awesome. Jay, in terms of yourself, you said you came back from the Giants, or, you know, as soon as you were on the Giants, now in your hometown in Orange, New Jersey, you're looked at a totally different way. Were you ready to be looked at as a role model?
No, not at first, but I mean, I kind of just got thrown into the fire. I mean, you know, me coming from Orange and seeing the kids that grew up around me, you know, they didn't have fathers. I was just one of the lucky ones to get out. So to come back, I know what's in that neighborhood, and I know what they need, you know, as, you know, young males growing up. You know, so if I could, you know, come back and help in that, you know, that space of being that positive role model, then so be it.
And then have you, because the Giants, well, Michael Strahan was very active with a lot of charities throughout his entire football career. Were there, and I know the Giants do a lot of programs in the community, did you ever participate in any of those?
Yeah, most of them that the Giants are, it's not ringing off the top of my head, but most of the ones that they, you know, worked with, I was right there with them. The J Fund with Tom Coughlin, that's his big one. Always helping kids with cancer and stuff like that. So yeah, always, yeah, absolutely.
And did you reconcile to being a role model like that, especially after that? Because wasn't that was your rookie year,
Yeah,
right? The Super Bowl.
Yep.
So it's like that's a lot of attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you said, you were thrown into the fire. Do people just really look at you as this role model after that, and at a whole nother level?
Yeah, 100%. But again, it just comes with the territory. You know, you get to the NFL and you're already, you know, seen as a star by the younger kids. Like they're already saying, okay, well, look, this guy's he's an NFL player, so he's huge, you know. So me coming back to my hometown is just like, oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Prim, in terms of the pressure from because you've been involved in the sports media your whole career, in terms of the pressure on these professional athletes now to be role models, tell us about that. How do you see that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure on athletes to be role models, but I think we often forget that sports doesn't necessarily make you a role model. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have character. You have to use sports as a vehicle to become a role model. And I think the one time that I really learned that not everybody is up to the challenge is hearing Venus Williams alongside Billie Jean King when they were trying to fight for equal pay at the time at Wimbledon. And Venus and also Billie Jean King just kind of said, like, listen, not everybody can handle this type of thing, and this may not be necessarily your life purpose. And she's really right, because it is a huge responsibility, whether you want to speak up about, you know, be a social activism or talk about racial issues or social issues or politics. I think that athletes have the opportunity, but if they want to take that opportunity, I think it's important that they become really educated about whatever they want to be passionate about, and then they can assume the role as the role model.
Jay, in terms of the impact on kids, there's people who say that because of the lack of black males superheroes early on, now that's changed, thank God, but that the athletes have become those superheroes to kids. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, like I was saying, like, you know, we turn in to watch football and basketball every day. Well, not every day, but every Sunday. Basketball every other day. So these are things that they're seeing, you know, pretty much throughout their lives. So these are people that they can kind of, you know, emulate themselves after. So of course they're superheroes, because you go to these Marvel movies, they're big on camera, and it's everything that you want to do. So now you see these athletes, it's like, oh, this is something that I think I can do. So now, yeah, they absolutely look like superheroes.
And then in terms of, were there people that came up to you after that Super Bowl that were like, you were surprised that they watched football, or you were just surprised by how much adulation you got for that? I mean, winning the Super Bowl is a pretty big deal. Everyone
Right.
knows that. But I mean, were there just things that you were kind of like, you know, what did that feel like is what I'm asking you?
It was an unbelievable feeling. I mean, like, again, like it's you can't really put something like that into words. Only because I was so young at the time, and I didn't really grasp like how big the moment was. You know, I talked to Strahan after the game, and he was like, you know, Jay, don't take this for granted, you know, because, you know, it might not happen again. You know, I've been here for 15 years, and, you know, this is my first one. And, you know, me just being young Jay is just like, oh, no, I'll be here over and over again, you know, 5 years, whatever, you know. And so winning that in that moment, I didn't realize how big it was. You know, now that I look back at it, it's just like, oh, wow, that was a huge moment, you know. And now it's like ingrained in Giants history. So things like that is just like, wow, you can't really put that into
Because
words.
you're just trying to do your best and
Right.
stay focused on the game.
Right.
Prim, in terms of the other thing too that was kind of the irony of the Kobe Bryant story that people saw was he didn't have a son. A lot of times it's
Yeah.
like the father passes the sport on to the son, but he was so proud and had that special relationship with Gianna.
That's actually one thing that I asked him on the
Did
set.
you? What-
Yeah, because I was like, I mean, you got 4. You guys gonna go for a 5th one? And he's like, you know what? Yeah, he's like, I'd be happy to have another one. I'd be happy to have another girl. That's up to Vanessa, because it's her body. Whatever she's been looking. She's the one that had been wanting a boy. But, you know, for whatever reason, Kobe just really took a liking and also a loving, and he just really, really loved his daughters. And it came out, I love the book series that he was promoting, because he said the whole reason why I wanted to write these stories for children is because I wanted my girls to be able to read these stories and see people like them and find inspiration from it. Because, you know, for people that, for tennis players, for example, that didn't have Serena Williams, they couldn't look up on the TV screens and see an African-American female playing tennis. They had to come up with their own dream.
Right,
You know,
right.
and so that's what Kobe was trying to do through that. He said, I'm tired of telling the story of the princess being saved by the handsome prince. It's not just about that. My girls, they want to hear about soccer. They want to hear about basketball, because they were jocks. They all played sports. And that was just the coolest thing that I took away from him in my conversation.
Do you see anybody else during your time as a player in the NBA that had that same kind of?
I don't think I've ever come across an athlete who put in that much work the way he did, with that fire and desire to be the best. You know, we as athletes, you know, my goal was to make it to the NBA. That was my dream, to make it to the NBA. His goal was to be the best player in the world. Like, our mindsets, like, were different.
Yeah.
You know, other people's mindsets in the NBA were like mine. You know, they wanted to make it to the NBA. Some wanted to be all-stars. Some wanted to be superstars. He wanted to be the best in the world. He wanted to go down as the best ever to touch this earth. And that's a special kind of mindset that very few have.
That's a great way to remember him and a great note to end the show. But I want to thank you so much for being with us, Smush Parker. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having
we
me.
appreciate it.
I had fun.
It was great. Prim Siripipat, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having
We
me.
appreciate it. Jay Alford, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you so much. And thank you for joining us for this episode of Street Soldiers. I'm your host, Lisa Evers. Remember, use your mind. It's your best weapon. I hope it's your only weapon. Let's push for peace.